Good morning and welcome to the Town of Surf City work session for April 25th, 2025. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilman Trudy Solomon if she would please stand and say the invocation, and please stay standing, and Mr. Shugarts is going to lead us in the pledge.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us here today. Thank you for all the people who serve, the people who work, all the people who gather around in this town to do good for each other, for the future residents here. Lord, I ask that you give us the wisdom and discernment that we need today. Lord, help us to be united in conversations and decisions, sharing views that reflect all represented here in this town, and that we don't overlook anything and we don't miss anyone. Lord, I pray for healing for those who, some of the members, some of the people here lately who have suffered some injuries. I pray for a quick recovery for those folks. I pray for comfort for those who are experiencing any kind of loss or grief, and just help us to rally around as a town and be the good neighbors that you called us to be. And these things we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning again. It has brought to my attention that we need to add an item to the work session agenda.
Ma'am, I'd like to make a motion to add that item.
Could you tell us what that item is?
I'd like to make a motion to amend agenda to add consideration of approval of timber thinning and timber clearing transactions.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion to add timber cell thinning to our consenda workshop. What item number are we going to add that to?
19, Madam Mayor.
19. All right, first item, number 1, is the Medlin-Dixon annexation petition resolution to direct the town clerk to investigate. And
I need to adopt the agenda.
oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at something totally different. I have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same signs. Motion carries. Do we have any public comments? No public comments. First item, Medlin-Dixon annexation, and Carla, our town clerk, will present.
You have in your packet a petition for annexation. This is regarding PIN numbers 423612, 92370000, and also 42363100470000. This is 2 parcels, one owned by Doug and Kathy Medlin, one by Roland Dixon. They are requesting annexation off of Highway 50. You should have the maps in your packet, and I'm requesting that you just direct to investigate.
Anyone have any questions?
You just need consensus
Yes.
on it.
If not, do we have a consensus to move forward?
Yes.
Thank you, Carla. Item number 2, utilities write-off resolution, and David Price will come up and present.
Excuse me.
Morning, David.
Morning, Mayor, Council. In your packet's a resolution and a list of accounts and amounts over the last 20 years that we have accumulated. These are mostly accounts that have went into bankruptcy or otherwise uncollectible. While these amounts stay on our books, they are a liability to our financial structure. We are asking that these, since they are uncollectible for one reason or another, that the council puts this as a consent agenda item to write off in the May 6th meeting.
Anyone have any questions concerning the write-off of the resolution?
One just quick scenario. Don't get deep in the weeds. What would make something uncollectible?
They're in bankruptcy, sir.
Okay, good enough. Thank you.
If there is no other questions, do we have a consensus to move forward?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. David Price also has the next item, which is the easement agreement resolution.
I appreciate that, Mayor. Before you is a easement resolution and a contract to exchange easements with the identified parcel ID numbers in your packet. This is our future Well 6 site off of Highway 50. It is surrounded on two sides by another piece of property looking to develop here soon. What we're essentially doing is we are giving up a 10-foot easement on the western side, and they're giving us a 10-foot easement on the southern side with restrictions on both easements to not allow parking. This is a net gain for the town as it protects our well system by giving an additional 10-foot buffer. And it helps the business because it allows them some more travel lanes and beautification for their business. Staff recommends this be placed on consent agenda for May 6th.
Are there any items that need to be discussed concerning the easement? Hearing none, do I have a consensus to move forward with the easement agreement?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Item number 4, parking lease agreement resolution, and I think Kyle is going to present.
Happy to. Good morning, Madam Mayor and Council. The town was approached by a local business to seek some parking space rental adjacent to their business. The business is Aquaholics. There's some construction that's going to start in June regarding the construction of some townhouses, which will have some disruptions to the business. They operate a boat rental over there, pretty close to the old police department. So what we did was we looked at an area that has been sort of informally used by staff for parking, but we would be considering the allowance of 12 parking spaces. Did get an email yesterday from the applicant and stated that they went back and actually only needed 6. But regardless, the calculation that I came up with was based on our average annual revenue per parking space, and then divided that out by the number of spaces, and then by the amount of time in which the applicant was requesting that parking. So essentially, the lease resolution is only for 4 months throughout the summertime for 6 parking spaces. Be seeking consensus from the board to allow the manager to move forward with the lease agreement in accordance with general statute provisions for leasing land to an outside entity. So essentially, we'd be looking at that $10,500 number cut in half for 6 parking spaces.
Anyone have any questions for Kyle? Hearing none, is there a consensus to move forward?
Yes.
Okay, next item, credit card fee resolution, and Melissa, our finance director, will present.
Good morning, Madam Mayor and Council. At our budget workshop a couple weeks ago, or maybe a month ago, there was interest in moving the credit card fee processing fee to the actual consumer, and the town no longer absorbing that. Part of the process is, as a group, you have to approve that resolution. We have to advertise to our citizens and all the locations that we accept payments that we are going to transition that fee to them, and we're going to have to order new credit card machines and get a couple of things in place. So our anticipation is having this ready by June 1st. If we cannot have the credit card machines, we'll implement it July 1st. So I'm asking for your consensus to add this resolution to the May meeting. The resolution also indicates that the fee will not exceed 3%. And it has to be across the board for the entire municipality. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
One question, what's the process now, and how's it work now when somebody uses a credit card?
Now, we have multiple processors for our credit card transactions. So we have Heartland machines in this location. We have Stripe computers in this location. Parks and Recs has Rec Desk swipers and Heartland swipers at their location. You come in, your water bill is $21.79. We charge you $21.79. So in the future, moving forward with this, all the machines will be equipped to calculate that 3% for you. So when the water bill is $21.79, when you say you're going to pay with a credit card, on their side, there's going to be a machine that they'll see the $21.79 and the fee. So let's say it's $23.50. It'll show up on their receipt. So the fee has to be listed separately. So with that transition, though, currently you have a Heartland machine sitting in Parks and Rec and in building inspections. Both of those will go away. Rec Desk has swipers, so the process will be the same there. You will no longer be able to come in and pay with a credit card through a swiper in building inspections, but we have the kiosk up front in the right-hand corner. Our girls will help you process it online.
Of course, anyone can pay with cash or check and not have any fees whatsoever associated.
That is correct. They can come in and pay cash, check, or money order, and there's no fee associated.
And the fee is online payments as well as in-person credit card payments.
So those fees are already in place for all your online payments. So this only impacts your in-person fees.
Just as a quick reminder for our customers, especially for utilities, as we continue to try to seek efficiencies within the organization, and as we saw with the delay in the postal service this week for utility billing, setting up that direct deposit is really the most efficient possible way. You know your bill is being paid, and that eliminates a transaction on both sides. So we always try to make this plug of setting up your direct deposit. It's really easy, you know, and I just wanted to kind of get that out there, as you know, sometimes these systems don't always function correctly, especially dealing with the postal service in today's day and age. So.
Yes, the due date is the 25th, correct, David? It's today? And the payments that normally come in for this week, we normally have a tray this big. We've not got over 25 or 30 envelopes this week. So mail is floating somewhere for everybody's water bill. And as Kyle indicated, the direct deposit or the direct draft is also fee-free. So if you want to set it up on automatic draft, there's no fee associated with that.
I thought the mayor passing something last month that was free water this month. That's what I thought she had passed.
No.
I'm just
You were serving
No free water.
at your coffee shop.
Okay, you can have this free water.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Come by and pick you up a case.
Is there any other questions for Melissa? If not, can we have a consensus to move forward?
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you,
Get that
Melissa.
rolling, the signs will go up.
All right. You are item number 6 as well, police vehicle BOA.
Yes, so we had a couple accidents in the past couple months. We've received the insurance checks to recover those 3 repairs. The insurance proceeds was $47,906, and we need consensus to add this budget amendment to the consent agenda for next month. This will allow the police chief to get those 3 vehicles repaired. So this just appropriates the funds.
Does anyone have any questions? Do we have consensus to move forward?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Next item is Melissa as well, NCDOT Electric Vehicle Grant BOA.
Yes, so we received a grant for 2 electric vehicles with a value up to $100,000. It does require a 20% match from the town, and this budget amendment appropriates the $80,000 and appropriates the $20,000 for the vehicles. And they are picked out and can be picked up fairly quickly. So this is just consensus to add that to the May agenda as well.
Any questions? Have consensus?
Yes.
And I will just note, Madam Mayor, that the quote in your packet exceeded the 50, single vehicle is 57,000 and some change, but Mr. Carter was able to find 2 vehicles, brand new. They're just 23 models for under that 50,000 each. So there will not be additional expenditure beyond the 20,000 from the town. So
Awesome.
looking forward to these. So.
All right, the digester project BOA and David Price, Utilities Director, will come up and present.
The digester project is currently under construction. There's a little bit of cleanup. The next few items are cleanup items. Digester unfortunately came in almost $1 million over budget of what we originally predicted. We did bid it out 3 different times trying to get it below. It just never happened. We do have the money allocated. This is supplemented with a $4 million appropriation. But that being said, in order to make the contract match the budget, we need to move some more money over into that budget. And just asking for a consensus to move that to the May 6th.
Anyone have any questions for David? Hearing none, is there a consensus to move forward?
Absolutely.
Thank you, David. Water Resiliency BOA?
Yes. Originally, the town received a $2.8 million. It's not a zero interest. It's a 0.01% interest loan with 25% forgiveness. The town had opportunity to go back and ask for more money, and we did. And we got that bumped up to $6.8 million. With that, we had 3 projects, the Well 6, Subaqueous Crossing, and the North Shore Pipeline Project. What this BOA does is it recognizes a new amount of $6.8 million in the low interest loan and forgiveness portion and consolidates all 3 projects into one project to make it easier for tracking. And staff is asking for consensus to place this on the May 6th agenda.
Anyone have any questions? Do I have consensus to move forward?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, David. Next item, wastewater treatment plant expansion phase 2 contract.
Yes, as many of you may know, we received a $20 million appropriation last year, I believe it was. Since then, we've been working with DEQ and engineering staff to figure out how to get the most effect out of that money. And after we met with DEQ and the engineering staff, we found out that the engineering costs for expending what we need to expend is going to be higher than originally suggested by $1.2 million, which would be covered by the $20 million state appropriation. So this is asking for the new contract with the red, you should have the red lines in there showing the differences of what they're going to be doing, be approved on the May 6th agenda under consent. And I'd be glad to go through what that project consists of if you like.
I was getting ready to ask you a little bit. Is this part of, well, I'll let you tell me. I know we just expanded that digester. Is that part of this?
No, that's part of the $4 million that we did 2 items ago.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking. That's where so tell me again what this is. I apologize.
What this does is it creates what we call a scalping station, which is a mini wastewater treatment plant on Aldrich Boulevard. I always get it mixed with Alston, so I got to think about it. Creates a pipeline between it and the new park, and it creates a subsurface system of 400,000 gallons a day or greater underneath the subsurface.
I remember now.
And it upgrades our UV system at the existing wastewater plant up to 3 million gallons a day.
And all the expense involved is part of the money that we've received already, and or are able to fund this through the fees we already received for this type thing.
This portion of it, the total project's $38 million. $20 million would be paid for out of this, and the other $18 million be out of. We're going to talk to our financial people about that. The best way to handle that.
Thank you.
Anyone have any further questions? Is there a consensus to move forward?
Yes.
Thank you, David. Next is the wastewater treatment plant expansion phase 2 BOA.
This is the companion item with the last contract. All it does is it goes ahead and increases that line item for engineering costs by 1.2 million to make the contract match the budget. And we're asking for consensus to put it on the consent agenda for May 6th.
Anyone have any questions? If not, do we have a consensus?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Fire station expansion BOA, Kyle Brewer is going to present, and this item is going to ask for a vote instead of a consensus.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a follow-up to our last couple of meetings talking about Station 25 expansion. Finance Director and I sat down and talked to our financial advisor to discuss best options moving forward. It has been determined that a loan would be the best route as our current funds are gaining more interest in return than what we would be expending in loan costs. So this allows the town to continue to earn that interest and will save us money by going for the borrowing. I will note that with this approval, and we'll bring a follow-up for a reimbursement resolution so that we'll be able to roll in the costs that we've put out for design on the facility into that borrowing as well. So we'll get some of that money back that has already been expended out of the general fund. So essentially, we're asking for the budget ordinance amendment to appropriate this money into our loan proceeds, in which we will go out to the market and get a commercial loan for the project.
All right, and this is also something that we're still asking our state legislators
Absolutely.
to help us with as well.
Yeah, so my understanding, just as a quick update, the Senate has released their version of the budget. Local appropriations are not included in the budget. That process, the House will create their own, and then they'll go into conference committee. So we just don't know at this point. Obviously, if we get those funds, this would kind of go away, essentially. We would do the accounting on the back end to accommodate for it. But yes, working with both of our senators and our representative on these appropriations, we talked directly to Senator Lazara when he was in Hawley Ridge a couple of weeks ago, and then I've been working with Senator Jackson's office to resubmit the information. As you'll recall, Mayor, when you and I went up there, we gave them these couple of these projects. So
And they asked.
And they specifically asked, requested again to remind them of what our requests were. So again, can never fully anticipate it until it comes and we get that notification. But this project is on our legislative priority request. So.
Any other questions for Kyle? Nope. If we don't, do I have a motion to move forward in accepting the fire station expansion BOA as presented?
I'll make a motion to move forward on that.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries to move forward. Next item is utilities complex expansion, and David Price is back up.
Like I said, I appreciate this. Before you is a GMP, guaranteed maximum price for the phase one of the utilities facility expansion. To give you a little bit of history on this, working space around town is getting pretty tight with all the growth we've been seeing. Under this design, it'll create the first phase of first building of 4 buildings, which will hold the utility department, which consists of C&D, the administration, and this new stormwater division. After this is completely constructed, Public Works would then fall back to facilities and grounds for that working space. What this also does is it creates some space for the future. As you might have noticed, the town hall is pretty full. So what this does is creates 10 private offices and 3 front-facing offices, 13 total, to open up a second site to interact with the public, pay their utility bills, get general questions asked, so on and so forth. Let's see if we got anything. This will be completely funded by savings. We do have enough savings saved up to get this first phase completely constructed, and we're looking to move pretty quickly on this to resolve some of the issues we have to accomplish the new hires and the some of the existing staff that might not have a permanent office. Asking that we could bring a consensus of a BOA and contract to the May 6th council meeting.
And I'll just add, the second phase of this will include basically the storage facilities for all the equipment. And we have not gotten design on those. Those would be very rudimentary type buildings because we re-engaged the engineer to go out and have the surveyor do a full survey on the entire piece of property behind Station 2. As our wetlands footprint has been minimized, so that's very favorable for us as we continue to try to design for efficiency and getting that through there. This also will potentially pave the path for other sort of opportunities such as a fuel depot or et cetera, but this also becoming a secure site for the utilities operations as well. So.
Where is this location?
It's 1220 Highway 210. It's currently where Chris works off of. Yeah, Station 2 is what they call it.
The disc golf area.
That area, okay. Very good.
So it's taken a full remodel of that existing Station 2. And the other working piece of this is, the police department uses that currently also to do minor repairs and maintenance on their vehicles and some equipment storage. And, again, looking into the future for future plans out at the current Public Works facility, exploring and analyzing options for in-house fleet maintenance, et cetera, that we might be able to start looking at to handle the growth of the operations and not subcontracting all that work out for minor and routine maintenance things.
And explain the community center component?
I'll have to defer to Mr. Brewer on that one.
Yeah, so the larger project in which we engaged D.R. Reynolds as the design build entity to lead us through this process was Station 25 expansion, the public utilities expansion, and then the community center.
So that's part of this.
The community center is due to the civil engineering side of it. There's a lot of utilities, stormwater impacts. These two, I don't want to minimize them by any means. These were the more low-hanging fruit in regard to complexity of the project development. So we will then begin addressing the community center expansion. They are under contract to develop design. Now, when we make a decision on execution of that project, that'll be a discussion for the future. But we will work through pretty much everything to get us to this GMP on the community center side as the third sort of wheel of this project.
Right.
One question. Obviously, I'm for this. So people are going to be able to come out to station, the previous Station 2 to pay their utility bills out there, correct?
Sir.
So I know you guys have probably thought this through, but turning left there is not easy on that bend. So do you have a thought process of what you're going to do there? Because it could be a little bit, you know what I'm talking about there?
Yeah, I talk about taking a left to go out to 17.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a good solution to that, to be honest. Not right now. I mean, we chose the site because the town already owns it, and we have space there to build something like this. If we were
The
to
road out to the access road to the next there that goes up to Frisbee Golf?
Yeah, we can connect over to H2O Place.
Phase 2, yes.
Yeah.
This is only phase one. Once it expands deeper into the project, there's already a road there that we could improve.
Okay, good.
That's still not designed yet.
And from the design side, for the site plan side of it, is that there is a kind of a stub out of the parking lot that would go in that direction as well, and that's what we had kind of envisioned, more so internally than for the public, but kind of envisioned that that could be where a fuel depot site could be located, so that staff could use that as a loop, per se. But yes, we certainly recognize the increased traffic and the sort of curve nature of that location. And Madam Mayor, if I may, I'll just put another plug in for online bill pay and all the other resources in which the town provides, given back to our residents and customers, so that they don't have to go drive out there. But of course, we do welcome any questions that they may have for their utility accounts and services provided.
They'll still be able to come here to pay as well, though.
They absolutely will.
So you
And
have other options, too.
Yes, we will have full backup services in regard to, and we want it commercially, is if somebody goes out there to pay something, that they can still have that business be fulfilled, and then, being able to go back and forth.
Any further questions for David? We just need a consensus at this meeting to move forward.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right, thank you, David.
Thank you.
Next up, item number 14 is the sidewalk expansion project, and Gary Chris will present.
Good morning, Madam Mayor and Council. In your packet, you'll find the overview of the sidewalk expansion project. I am asking Council for consensus of the sidewalk expansion project as shown. I am also asking for approval of the contractor. The sidewalk will be installed down North Topsail Drive, Wilmington Avenue, and South Shore Drive, between Roland Avenue and Kinston. With the completion of this project, the town will have installed sidewalk the entire length of Topsail Drive. It is staff's recommendation that council approve New Hanover Paving as the contract winner. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
How soon?
I will have to talk to them about that. But it should move pretty quick.
Like summer?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yeah. I would say within the next few months.
Okay.
And two, being that we're working within the Island Town Center and the centralized location of the island, I talked about this the other day, our time frame for doing construction seems to get narrower and narrower within the town, but we will do everything that we possibly can to communicate this, especially when it has direct impacts to residents and property owners. Another thing, just as a reminder, we had the Island Town Center business meeting. We were able to communicate this project and spoke to a couple of the business owners that, like Mr. Lohr at the pier. And so we'll make sure that we coordinate and not block anybody's driveway for the business that's being conducted. And we'll try to work with the contractor to make this as painless as possible.
What's the contractor's name again?
New Hanover Paving.
All right, any further questions for Gary Chris? If not, we have a consensus to move forward?
Yes.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Next item up is Beautification and Enhancement Committee appointment, and Carla will present.
Today, I'm asking that you consider the applications that were sent to you for the Beautification and Enhancement Committee to appoint new members. And you'll be appointing 2 at this time. Per the handbook we just approved recently, it had in the handbook 8. That was my mistake. It should be 9. So we'll be adding 2 new members to that committee. And we just need consensus, and then it would go to May 6th agenda, and they would be able to attend the meeting in May.
No ballot, you just want us to name 2.
But also I want to mention that I would need to make that change in the handbook, so I would need you to approve that change to say 9.
The handbook to say 9 today?
Just to, Yeah,
Or
it
just
can be on
consensus?
consensus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do I have a consensus to clarify in the handbook that there are 9 members and that today we would be adding 2 new members per the handbook?
Yes.
Okay. So we have consensus to that. You also want us to have,
Choose 2
okay,
members.
so let's talk about that.
And remove Miss Eman from that list. She would prefer to be on a different committee.
Miss Eman. All right, let's start with Trudy. You got
Can I ask
2?
a question first?
Absolutely.
And I apologize. I'm going to make a quote first. I think it's Mark Twain. There's a quote that says, "It's better to remain in silence and look a fool in to open your mouth and remove all doubt." And I'm afraid I'm about to remove all doubt. But the committees, we get such short notice on, as a board, I feel, to look over these applications to decide who we're going to do or who we're going to choose. So my question is there a reason why the committee doesn't present us with a recommendation of who they feel like they could work best with? And or
Do they know?
why are they limited to 9?
They've been
Why are they limited to 9 people?
That's per the handbook.
We had approved this in October 18th.
I
and it
remember
was-
the approval, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it now, I'm like, but I don't understand why there's a
If I
limit
could
on
say
the
something, I think,
beautification committee.
I cannot agree with him enough. I think what, in this particular committee, those members that were interested went to the meetings. So that's why those are the ones that went to some meetings and have decided that they want to be on the committee.
Oh, no, I'm with you on that. I understand
Does the
why they
committee
want to be
wanna
on.
make a
But
recommendation?
what I'm saying is why, it seems the better fit to me would be a scenario, whoever's to chair that committee or that group gets together and say, hey, we interviewed these applicants, we've reviewed these applicants, these are the ones that are coming to the meetings. We would like these people to be appointed. Unfortunately, and I apologize if I hurt anybody's feelings, I read the names, I recognize, but I've not interacted with any of these people.
That would have to be a change to the handbook for the committee,
Yeah, just the
for the committee
process
to
of,
recommend.
and we can definitely entertain that
Well,
change.
Yeah, well, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, I just wanted to share my thoughts and concerns on, it just seems odd to me the way we do this particular committee.
Do we know that all 5 of these people did attend a meeting? Because wasn't that something that we had discussed, that in order for an applicant to be considered, we wanted to make sure that they
Yeah, I
went?
don't have the names in front of me.
Yeah, we did not, it was not decided to actually make that change
Yeah.
in the handbook. It was discussed that that would be a preference, but it was not made as a change.
I'm just curious if any.
I know that Debbie and Sandy both had been to meetings. Sandy Max and Debbie both had been to meetings, correct?
Yes, and Mr. Hemphill's wife,
Patty.
that's
Yeah,
Patty.
Patty.
So those 3 were
Have been
at
to
the
meetings, yes.
last
Yes.
meeting. Miss Debbie's been with us for a couple of months now at the committee meeting, so.
All right, let's start with Trudy. Do you have 2?
I recommend Debbie Wilson and Sandy Maddox. I know they've been attending meeting. I know Debbie Wilson is present. No pressure, no. And she does, created the Eco Topsail Group. I know she is loyal to a lot of community service and events here. And so one of our challenges sometimes is to have regular attendance at the meetings. And so when you get on a committee, I appreciate anybody who's going to step forward and want to serve and do something productive in the community. And I know things pop up, but we do value regular attendance. And so I feel confident with that with Debbie. Sandy Maddox, I know she was I know she worked at the University of Mount Olive, and she was heavily involved in agriculture and many committees and steered a lot of things there. So I know her actual home has won the beautification award. Her yard is beautiful. And also, she's recently retired, so I felt like her attendance would be solid. And her knowledge of the native plants in our area would be good information to have, and talking through any common area improvements and such. So those were my recommendations.
Patty Linsis and Sandy Maddox.
Mine is Debbie Wilson and Sandy Maddox.
B. Wilson, Sandy Maddox.
I'm Patty and Sandy.
So we have a tie between, no, those two are even, Stephen.
So that would be Sandy Maddox.
Sandy and Debbie.
Wilson. And I'll add that to the consent.
That's just
agenda.
a consensus that will move forward, and that will be on the May agenda.
And I hope that some, the other people I think are valuable too. Maybe there's another committee opportunity for some of them in the future. I mean, I want people to continue to put their name in the hat.
Absolutely. I think
So,
Carla continues to send out
That's good.
a candidate request for
I'm just really
committee.
excited that we had so many good candidates.
Absolutely.
I was very excited.
And we will have openings soon, so
Yeah,
be watching for that.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up is the pay study update, and I'm going to call upon Lydia, and she's going to introduce our guest speaker.
So today we have with us David Hill from Piedmont Triad Regional Council. They are the company that did our original pay study several years ago. So they are the ones that have come back to do our market study update. And he has a presentation to go through everything with it. And then we can have questions or anything if you want to ask as we go through that for that. And this is Mr. David Hill.
Thank you.
Right there.
Okay. I was last before you 5 years ago, I believe. We completed what was known as a comprehensive pay and classification study, made recommendations to you, and we'll take a look at actually how the workforce has benefited from the decisions that you made 5 years ago. But at the beginning of this fiscal year, we came back and began a new comprehensive study, taking a look especially at those positions that were new since our last study, or meeting with individual employees whose positions had significantly changed since the last time we looked at them. So I have a PowerPoint with slides and graphs and charts. None of those are very exciting. So as I go through the charts, I hope I click the right buttons. Well, I failed on the first attempt. So at the beginning of any study that we do, we collect workforce data at the beginning of the study and make some assumptions from the interpretation of that data. And when I take a look at that information, I first view it in terms of standard deviation. So in a mature workforce, and our definition of a mature workforce is you have an average years of employment between 8 and 10 years. Unfortunately, over the last 5 to 10 years, the historical data that we continue to collect is trending down. So the average years of employment in local government, unfortunately, is dropping below that 8 to 10 year period. But in a mature workforce, whatever element of that workforce we are looking at, I should be able to find 2/3 of your employees in the middle 1/3 of this bell curve. The bell curve also represents a pay grade range, with the far left side being the minimum or entry-level salaries, the middle portion of the bell curve being the midpoint or the market value of the pay grade range. And then on the far right side would be the maximum salary for that pay grade range. And again, an employee with an average years of employment between 8 and 10, I should be able to find their salary in that middle 1/3. But with that as the backdrop, I can tell you 5 years ago I made this statement, and the statement still remains true. I cannot recreate a bell curve on my slides. My bell curves, I thought for a long time looked like St. Louis arches, but I don't even think they look like St. Louis arches anymore. But the very first thing I take a look at is how long have employees been working here? And again, I'm looking for that 8 to 10 year kind of information, but as you can see from this slide, your average years of employment is 6.6 years. Your average years of employment 5 years ago was 6.7 years. So from that standpoint, you're about the same. But as you look at the bars on that graph, those represent the number of employees who came to work for you in each of those calendar years, who were still employed with you at the beginning of this fiscal year. Now remember, this data is just a snapshot of the workforce data at the beginning of the fiscal year. So you can see that most of the bars are on the left side. You do have some long-serving employees. My St. Louis Arch represents a 20-year career. But the thing to take away from that is you got a relatively immature workforce with the 6.6 years of employment. But you can see where most of the data is located on the left side. And what this also shows is, again, only those employees who came to work for you in each of those calendar years who were still employed with you at the beginning of the fiscal year. What's not shown there is the number of employees who actually came to work for you and who are no longer available. And historical data will track, if we track the 2023 graph, the bar with the highest number of employees, if we tracked those employees over the next 5 years, that highest bar in the next 3 to 5 years is going to look like the bars to the right of it. And that's just historical data, and I don't know if I knew the answer to how to keep the number of employees working here. I could write a book or be on television. I don't know. But that's just a view of the workforce as it relates to how long employees have been working for you. This chart tracks where employee salaries are along their pay grade range. Now, this is the one that shows the significant impact of the decisions made 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, your average employee salary was less than 10% above the minimum of their pay grade range. It was 9.2%. Currently, or at least at the beginning of this fiscal year, your average employee salary is now up to almost 15% above the minimum. Now that is a combination of a lot of work that Kyle and Lydia and the remainder of the management staff, we implemented the recommendations from the last study. You did have significant salary compression 5 years ago. The recommendations we made at that time were designed to address salary compression. And you can see that just in that 5 year period of time, you've almost cut your salary compression in half. So now your salary grade range is 60%. So again, looking at the standard deviation, an employee with 8 to 10 years of employment should have a salary closer to the highest point, of course, of the bell curve, but there's great movement that way. So the staff has done an excellent job of implementing the recommendations and working closely to bring salaries more in line. Now, this is just a graphical comparison of what you looked like 5 years ago to now. So the top bar is the last study 5 years ago. You can see that there's compression to the left side. The bottom one is the one that we just looked at. You can see that now there's beginning to be movement more to the right or more toward the midpoint of the salary grade range. So the actual pay and classification study part. we took a look at each of the positions. Employees completed what's known as a position description questionnaire. That's 12 pages of employees telling us in great detail everything that they do, every element of their position, even down to the percentage of time that they spend doing each of their activities. Especially for those employees who were either not employed 5 years ago or were now in positions that had significant changes. I did conduct telephone interviews with them just to make sure I had as best understanding as I could about the position that they had. I collect data from a lot of other local governments. We'll take a look at those in a moment. And the significance of the questionnaire is there's where I gain all of the specific information about each of your positions. That then is used to compare your positions to similar positions in these other local governments. And all of you know that within local government, there are no two positions exactly alike. You would think that a police officer in Murphy is the same as a police officer in Zebulon, who's the same as a police officer in Surf City. And for the most part, they are. But there's always 5, 10, 15% of other duties, responsibilities, and authorities that they have. If we can get about an 85% match of primary duties and responsibilities, that's as close to apples as we can get. But it's just a process of collecting information from a lot of places, comparing that information, interpreting the information. So here in this slide, you can see those local governments that we collected information from. So those are the local governments that we compared each of your positions to, and then from that data made initial assumptions, initial interpretation of the data, reviewed that data with Kyle and Lydia, worked through the data until we came to the information that I'll be presenting to you this morning. The slide that we're going to take a look at now is just a sample of one of your positions and what I look at when I'm collecting data. So this position is the only one we'll take a look at this morning, but every one of your positions has a comparison worksheet that looks just like this. So this is where we take each one of your positions, whether that's manager or HR director or police officer, and compare that to the similar positions in other local governments. And the data that we're collecting from those other local governments is what pay grade do they have that position in? How much do they pay the employee or the employees who are in that position? So going across the columns of that spreadsheet that you're looking at the minimum salary that they have for that particular classification, the midpoint of that pay grade range, the maximum, followed by the average salary of the employee or employees who are in that position. To the right of that is where I start taking a look at different kinds of measurement of that data. Where is the salary as a percent above the minimum of their pay grade range? The column that's entitled CR, that stands for comp ratio. And that's the basis of the recommendations I made 5 years ago and the ones that I'll make again today. Comp ratio is just a relative position of where an employee's salary is in relation to the midpoint of the pay grade range. And again, the midpoint of the pay grade range, the highest point of the bell curve. And that's where we should be able to find that employee's, again, 8 to 10 years experience. So everything above the blue line is the market. Immediately below the blue line is, for this particular classification, the pay grade that position is assigned to currently, the current pay grade range, the current salary or average salary of employees in that particular position, followed by, again, the same measurements of percent above minimum, comp ratio, and so forth. I then, in the two lines immediately below that, I take a look at just what is the average of the market, and then the median of the market. So then now I've got a relative position of where you are, where the market is, and the grayscaled column, the 2.8% column, I began the beginning of this current fiscal year projecting that the market data at the beginning of the next fiscal year would increase on average 3%. But as I stand before you today, I've adjusted that to 2.8. And in the recommended pay plan that we'll present to you, it's your current pay plan increased the 2.8% cost of living. But what I do with that grayscale column is take the current data and advance it 2.8%. So in this case, what I'm doing is taking a look at the pay grade range that this position currently is in, what is the average of the market, what's the median of the market, and what is that data projected to be 2.8% greater. So from that information, my recommendation, this position currently is in grade 2. My recommendation is that this position move to grade 4, which would put it in a pay grade range equivalent to the current data, increased to 2.8% for cost of living. Now, this is the only one we'll look at this morning. Every one of your positions has a worksheet like this, comparing it to the similar positions. And it's the basis of this kind of comparison that I do that is the basis for the grade recommendation that I make. So the recommendations. The recommendations that I'm presenting to you this morning is for each one of your positions based on that similar kind of comparison to then assign each position to the pay grade that's supported by the market data. And then the adoption of the implementation option. The implementation option is actually the same option that I presented to you 5 years ago. It's a comp ratio model that assigns a position, a relative position value along a pay grade range based on an employee's time in their current position. And it's designed to, that's a progressive value across the pay grade range whereby an employee's salary would reach the midpoint in the 8th year, or the 9th year, I'm sorry, in the 9th year of their time in current position. And then the formula is a formula. The formula looks at whatever I tell it to look at. And in this case, it's looking at an employee's date that they went into their current position. A spreadsheet formula doesn't know anything about history or events or why an employee's salary is where it is. So if we depended solely on a spreadsheet formula telling us where an employee's salary should be, then there sometimes is an inadvertent misapplication of where an employee's salary should be. So one of the things we do want to talk to you about this morning, and I think it's in your packet, is some personnel policy language that addresses how to use the formula as it is intended to be used, but at the same time provide to management the opportunity to adjust salaries outside of that formula to account for personnel actions that may have happened with that employee. So employee A and B could have started at the same time 5 years ago, but in the past 5 years, one of those employees' performance was much greater than employee number 2. And 5 years later, employee number 1's salary is $1,000 greater than employee number 2. Along comes this formula that looks at their employment date or the date and position and assigns their salaries at the same point. So the language that we're presenting to you today provides the methodology or the platform in which employees are looked at still within the meaning of the formula, the advancement based on time and position, but at the same time maintaining relative positions to each other based on that historical data. So I think the specific language of that is in your packet. And then, actually, I should have gone to this slide when I was talking about that. But this, the cost of living, your performance, and then the time and position formula. So if you have any questions about the specific language, it allows management to, an employee has to accomplish a number of things, basically 3 different things. They got to score in their performance evaluation at least in the 50th percentile or greater. And then they also must have achieved 75% of the goals that are established and agreed to by the employee and their supervisor. Now, with that one, there is an asterisk because to meet 75% of the established goals, there are a number of things that could come up during the year that prevents an employee from achieving those. So there is an asterisk beside that one, but that's there to allow the employee and the supervisor. And the supervisor has to approve of whatever that reason is that the employee wasn't able to meet at least 75%. And that could be an employee illness or injury or a family member illness or injury, or they were scheduled to take some course somewhere and they just didn't happen. And then they must not have had a disciplinary action in the preceding 12 months. So long as an employee meets those things, then their salary is going to advance in accordance with this comp ratio model. If they do not meet those 3, then there's where the recommended personnel language is going to come in to effect. And what that does is establishes an employee's relationship to a benchmarked position, a similar position. And then determine the current relationship of the affected employee to the benchmarked employee. And let's just say that currently there's $1,000 difference between their salaries. Follow the benchmark position over across the spreadsheet based on time and position and the other factors. And then wherever that benchmark employee's salary ends up, the affected employee's salary then would remain at that same $1,000 difference. So this actually puts into place language that prevents the employee who did not meet the standards from advancing the full amount across the pay grade range. So, any questions about any of that? Because actually, the next slide is if you take into consideration each of those recommendations. And there were a number, and I think, again, it's in your packet, the actual position titles, the current grade, and my recommended grade. Like the one we looked at, current grade 2, recommended to move to grade 4. And then there are also a number of positions, 8 or 9 or so, of those that we recommended position title changes to titles that better represented the actual job that the employee did. So the cost of all of that, if you just implemented the time and position model, that cost would be about $418,000. And to that is about 87% or $87,000 of that is payroll associated costs. So the first number you see on there is the actual salaries cost. Then the second number is 26%, which represents FICA, retirement, 401k, those payroll-associated costs. So the total cost of that would be the $418,000. In addition to that, I think the manager's recommending a 2.8% cost of living adjustment. So with the implementation of the 2.8, an employee would either get the 2.8 or the time and position model adjustment, whichever is greater. And then in that case, then you can see the bottom number, what that total implementation cost would be, about $455,000. So my next slide says, thank you very much for allowing me to be here this morning. And that was a very quick run-through of about 6 months' worth of work. But I'm here to
Thank you,
answer
Mr. Hill.
as many questions as you
Yes,
have.
we want to thank you for your presentation. I personally just have one question. So 5 years since your last study, but you are aware that we continue to give COLA raises every year and merit raises every year. Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
Pretty deep.
No questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Al, did you want to chime in on anything?
No, I always think that Mr. Hill always does a really good job, and it's always eye-opening to see, you know, sort of where we're at, and happy to see that we've made gains. In that same comment, I would really love to see that average go up. And, you know, we work really hard to identify strategies to retain employees. And, you know, we see people leave town employment for other reasons. And again, I'll co-author that book, you know, when we figure this out. But I sense it's sort of a reflection of our current sort of where we're at in society, and people having options of employment that may not be as traditional as a local government position. That always tends to be my sense of where we're at. But I will say that I feel, you know, as the manager, that we have become a lot more competitive within the market to attract and hire new employees. You know, so that opens up our potential talent pool and you know, options to try to bring in, you know, the best candidates that we can for the key and critical positions that we have. So, you know, again, I can appreciate council's direction on this. You know, this is one of our key strategic initiatives within the town to continue to pay attention to this, and it's going to continue to be a challenge. And, you know, personnel costs, you know, are the gift and the curse, I guess, of, you know, preparing any budgets, because we only see those things go up, and they're only going to continue to go up. So, not foreshadowing my future comments that I'll make in front of the board here in a couple of minutes, but those are just the challenges that we deal with and the realities that we're dealing with. So that's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Lydia.
And I will highlight, maybe before Lydia sits down, is just to make sure that council's aware of the personnel policy changes that we are recommending. I think that these are very critical, and, you know, if you caught what Mr. Hill was saying about having standards in place for employee awards in regards to merit, you know, having the 75% goal attainment and being above the 50th percentile in your core competency scores and the disciplinary actions, you know, including those in the policy makes it very clear. Hopefully additional incentives for employees to continue to focus on the goals in which we set every year. You know, some employees that have not been in this organization that start working here, I've heard comments. I haven't had an employee evaluation in 25 years. You know, and that's something that, you know, I feel very strongly about. I think it's a two-way street when you talk to employees about the goals that need to be accomplished to continue to work on the higher vision. You know, I think that's always key to help keep people engaged in the effectiveness in the job that they're doing. So,
Thank you. Thank you, Lydia. All right, we will continue with item number 17, our strategic plan, and Kyle Brewer will present.
okay, so this is a beyond exciting day for the town, I think, is to continue to look at the strategic plan for the town and to take into account what I felt was an extremely good conversation that we had during our budget retreat at the end of January. Just real quick to reiterate, you know, our mission every day to make Surf City a better place to live and a better place to visit. Working on our core values that were adopted several years ago, being service, opportunity, resilience, and efficiency. And I will note that going back to the pay study discussion and staff evaluations and goals, we assign core values to each goal in which an employee is setting forth and a supervisor is setting forth to try and match what those core values are. The strategic plan is broken up into several major categories. Those are growth and natural resources, infrastructure and transportation, organizational excellence, a safe, vibrant, and healthy community, and tourism and cultural resources. All elements that, in my opinion, form a thriving town in which we all work and live and spend a lot of our time in, and also for our residents to know that Surf City is keeping these core functions in focus. A little bit of background with this initial strategic plan was taking a lot of the work and efforts that were done within our comprehensive plan and other initiatives, a lot of survey feedback and information on what people want to see in Surf City. We have the job to translate that into specific actions that need to be taken, and you all have that opportunity to formulate what is important to you as a board to complete. And a lot of things that we want to look at again are may not be so much aspirational things, but they're actual strategic actions that the town wants to take in order to achieve this vision of success in which we all want to embrace. With that, and a culmination of our retreat was key strategic initiatives, if you'll recall. The first one is investing in overall water quality and quantity by expanding the water treatment plant. So that's under infrastructure and transportation, as well as tourism and cultural resources. Support the town's ability to increase wastewater treatment and disposal for system operations and future growth by proceeding with wastewater expansion projects falling under the infrastructure and transportation. Connecting the mainland and island by combining multi-use path segments, North Shore and Segment 1. That falls under your infrastructure and tourism, infrastructure and transportation, as well as tourism and cultural resources. Support pedestrian connectivity efforts by funding approximately $250,000 for sidewalk connections. Again, coming under infrastructure and transportation and tourism and cultural resources. Expand efforts to enhance communication by making the website more intuitive and aligning it with a forthcoming mobile application, falling under organizational excellence. Enhancing the organization's ability to recruit and retain a quality workforce by executing pay study recommendations, coming under the organizational excellence. Those are your key strategic initiatives for the current fiscal year. Another takeaway with this strategic plan is that this gives us the framework for annual review and evaluation of the key strategic initiatives, gives us an opportunity to have reporting metrics on implementation of those, and really sets the standard. The overall strategic plan sets the standard for what I will be now using for that manager's report that we all agreed upon that we would look at twice annually, and to document the efforts and programs and all the good things that we're doing within the town, and identifying any sort of gaps that we may have to achieve some of those goals. I'm not going to go through every single goal area unless there's a specific question on it, but it is broken down into objectives, our initiatives for each one of those categories, and then highlighted within the categories are the key strategic initiatives, so it makes it very clear and understandable of what is going to be the core focus. And hopefully what you'll see is translated into the budget process, et cetera, touching multiple elements in which sets the framework for us as a town staff to execute the vision and policy of town council. So if there's specific questions, happy to answer them.
I've read through this a couple times, and I think you did an awesome job putting it together. Yeah.
Thank you. And again, this is what I like to see with this as being a very dynamic document that we look at every year. And when we go through this adoption process, and you come to me with a new idea that sounds really good, I'm going to ask you, where does it fall in with our strategic plan? And if it does not, then the next question I'm going to ask is, how do we get this into the strategic plan with the support of the entire board, and we'll have opportunities to do that. So,
Anyone else have questions for Kyle? If not, we are going to move to item number 18, the budget officer's submission to council.
I'm going to come around to the podium, Madam Mayor, if that's okay.
Yes, sir.
To address the board for the budget. I'm not going to say my partner in crime by any means, but Melissa, our finance director, our awesome finance director, is here as well to support council questions and hopefully to support me in delivering the budget message and the overview for the fiscal year 25-26 council budget. So I'm going to quickly, quickly go through the executive budget summary for fiscal year 2025 and 2026. The budget is the financial plan for the town that begins July 1st and runs through June 30th. And if I sound redundant in some of my comments, it's so that I can make sure I touch on everything so that there's clear understanding, not for you all as I look at you all as budget pros at this point, but mainly for the public who wants to come back and listen to this information, or if they're joining us live. So as a quick overview, the proposed fiscal year 25-26 budget reflects a strategic and fiscally responsible response to increasing service demands, economic shifts, and infrastructure needs in the growing coastal community of Surf City, totaling $36,321,831. This balanced budget aligns with statutory requirements, meets critical operational needs, supports long-term capital investments, and reflects the priorities identified by Town Council. The budget ensures the continuation of high-quality service delivery and includes modest but essential increases in property taxes and solid waste fees to meet future demands while maintaining fiscal stability. A quick budget breakdown by fund. Your general fund at $19,520,551. The accommodations tax fund, $1,575,145. The water enterprise fund at $4,108,325. Sewer Enterprise Fund at $5,633,778. Stormwater Enterprise Fund at $516,000. Radio Infrastructure Fund at $275,000. Beach Nourishment Fund at $4,693,032, with a total budget, as mentioned earlier, at $36,321,831. Revenues identified within the budget. Our primary revenue source, as you all know, is the property tax or ad valorem tax. Our tax base at roughly $2.08 billion based on Pender and Onslow County assessments, and a proposed tax rate of 53 cents per $100 valuation, with estimated revenues of $10.87 million for the property tax revenue. Each cent on the tax generates approximately $207,753. Other notable revenue streams, local sales tax at $2.86 million. Solid waste fees at $1.41 million, and our utility fees approximately $8.76 million. Expenditures reflect a conservative approach to inflation and capital planning. Requests this year exceeded revenue projections by more than $3.2 million, necessitating difficult decisions to align spending with available funds. Key budget recommendations, again, as noted, property tax adjustment, recommended increase of 12 cents per $100 valuation. The purpose of this, and I'll get into this a little bit more, is to primarily sustain service delivery and meet capital investment needs. Solid waste fee increase, a $1 per month increase on trash, and a $1 per month increase for recycling services. Real quick, strategic budget highlights to go over what's included in the budget. Primary highlight is our beach renourishment fund. So fiscal year 26 contribution or transfer of $4.69 million. I'll take this time to reiterate the three elements that make up your beach nourishment fund and those transfers. The primary source being the accommodations tax, secondary source being parking revenues, and then the third primary source being the 10 cents of your ad valorem tax that gets transferred over to the beach nourishment fund. With that penny value, that increase continues to go, that number continues to go up. So we can anticipate at 207,000, approximately 2.07 million, just with the 10 cents. So the town of Surf City residents contribute significantly into the beach nourishment fund. And when you start taking a look at this, your tax rate generally is covering your operational needs. 10 cent of our tax rate being immediately transferred over to beach nourishment. We generally look at currently our operational tax revenue at 31 cent going to fund all the services for the town of Surf City. Infrastructure and capital improvements. Just finished up our Banks Channel navigation project. 500 plus thousand cubic yards of material being dredged out of Banks Channel and being placed onto the Surf City oceanfront. We would not be able to even entertain that discussion of executing that project without the fiscal stewardship that this council has made a priority to build that beach nourishment fund from years past. So the protections that we've put on, the recreational amenities that we've been able to put on the beach with this intermediate project and executing that project, I think that you as a board should certainly be proud of. Street maintenance, $448,309 being allocated to street maintenance. The town finished up a spring project, providing some additional clarity, predictability into the street maintenance program, and then working on the 5-year operational and capital needs of that program so that we can continue to communicate that to our residents. Sidewalks, $157,000 in improvements. So year over year, we continue to make those investments continue to invest into the pedestrian connection. And we do have a tool that shows gaps in the sidewalk network, and once this project is done, we will include those into that tool and give you all an understanding of what is remaining as our key location focus has been within our Island Town Center. And then continued investment in water and sewer upgrades. I felt like this entire workshop agenda today was really an overview or culmination of a lot of infrastructure investment into this growing town that is necessary to sustain the growth and to plan ahead. Workforce investment, so the pay study implementation, the budget is taking into account for competitive compensation, the cost of living adjustment at 2.8%. As a reminder, we take a snapshot in time, which is generally due to timing, the March Consumer Price Index at 2.8. So we use that very strategically to recommend that cost of living adjustment. And then the performance pay being set at 2.5%. Again, we heard at the previous presentation that that 2.5% is going to be based on merit and the goals being achieved. So even though we budget 2.5% for this merit increase, generally speaking, it's under 2% in which we are providing back to employees for the work that they are doing and the goals that they are accomplishing. Added staff within the budget through emergency services, facilities and grounds primarily. Challenges and strategic focus. Inflation continues to be a challenge. Infrastructure pressure continues to be a challenge, and workforce needs continue to be challenges. Structural rebalancing through moderate tax and fee increases within the budget. In conclusion, with just my preliminary message is that the fiscal year 25-26 budget balances strategic investments with fiscal discipline, ensures future readiness, and maintains high-quality services. It reflects responsible leadership and collaborative planning to get us to this point. As a manager, I can't stress enough that it's going to require us more effort to try to catch up if we experience a decline in service delivery or maintenance or capital investment. So therefore, that serves as the basis of recommendations in which I will continue to communicate with council. We need a bigger podium. Where's that big wooden one again? Here? So I wanted to go over some background information, some key demographics and statistics to help give you all a better understanding as to what we're working with for the budget. And boy, I don't have this in front of me. Let me see. Actually, I do. So again, highlighting our key strategic initiatives. In early 2024, council members and town staff came together to begin shaping objectives and outlining initiatives to bring our strategic plan to life. Through thoughtful collaboration, council identified priorities that reflect the needs of both our residents and employees, priorities that matter today and will remain vital over the next 5 years. As a result of this process, council established 6 key strategic initiatives that will guide the 25-26 budget planning cycle and help turn our shared vision into reality. Going over a few demographic numbers. First one being population. Surf City continues to experience steady population growth. According to 2023 estimates from the North Carolina Office of State Budget and Management, the town's population was approximately 4,798. However, current estimates place that population at around 5,373, which is a 12% increase. Our growth rate, This reflects an impressive overall growth rate of 34.28%, compounded since 2020. That's only 5 years, outpacing many towns of similar size. When I look at this, we have a couple of other jurisdictions that we pulled from to understand some surrounding growth rates. The town of Hawley Ridge being at almost 20%, town of Shalot at almost 18%. But other than that, you start looking at growth rate percentages and tripling what some of these other jurisdictions are looking at within our region. That's very substantial, and we continue to see that, and we'll continue to see this in the future.
Kyle, can I ask a question real quick? You know, if you notice Hawley Ridge is 20%, it's the next highest. It's a direct reflection of what's happening here. People that don't move here move to Hawley Ridge, or they move to Hampstead.
That's correct.
Right, so.
And as you will hear me say all the time, is that the services in which we provide, not just our residents, those services are being extended to the people that come to Surf City, because we now are a microeconomic region or hub for this region. So the growth in Sneads Ferry, which isn't documented here, coupled in the larger growth in Onslow County, Hawley Ridge, Hampstead, all consider Surf City as, you know, not just pull from our marketing stuff, but their hometown beach. So, which is a positive thing, helps sustain our economic vitality throughout the calendar year, not just through the beach season. But yes, you know, having the grocery stores, having the restaurants, having the retail that continues to grow within the town, that also brings challenges to the service delivery in which we do, reflected mainly in emergency services, police and fire, and you know, those things. Real quick, I promise I have checked this now 3 times. Median household income for Surf City being $84,833. Very surprising, Hawley Ridge being at $106,230. I talked to the mayor about this yesterday. I said there's got to be a mistake in this. And again, I went back again this morning and looked at it, and that is accurate. So, you know, the median household income remains comparable to peer communities. You know, again, noting Hawley Ridge, which, again, back to Mayor Pro-Tem's comments, I think highlighting the economic momentum in the surrounding region that, you know, Surf City is a part of. Worthy of noting consumer price index and how this ties into some future slides that I'll go over. So looking back at starting at 2012, you know, inflation sort of being steady until 2021. You know, hovering around 2% down to 0.1% in 2015. You know, and then you start hitting 2021, your inflation rate, that jumped to 4.7%, 2022, 8%, 2023 at 4.1%. And then, you know, sort of steady consumer price index projections being about 3% and then 2% in 2026. It's important to recognize that the consumer price index really applies the financial pressures back onto the town, but also back onto our residents. So the cost of services continue to go up. The town of Surf City is certainly not immune to purchasing, not immune to adjusting to the overall economy, the nationwide economy, but also our local economy. So those are challenges that we share and we face with our residents and with the visitors that come to Surf City. The next slide is just a graphical representation. You know, the inflation, you know, essentially what that does is it erodes the purchasing power of the dollar. So we have to make that stretch even further, and that becomes more and more difficult year over year. The adjusted value of $100, so again, going back to 2012, Fast forwarding all the way to 2025, $100 could cover a certain set of expenses. But by 2024, that same $100 requires approximately $135.36 to maintain equivalent purchasing power. Looking ahead, projections suggest the gap will widen even further, with the adjusted value climbing to $143.47 by 2026. This steady rise underscores the financial challenges faced by both households and local governments as they work to balance service expectations with economic realities. Getting into some of the revenues that make up the budget. Property tax revenues, again, as noted in my manager's report, this is the primary source of revenue in which the town realizes. So despite the challenges presented by inflation and rising service demands, Surf City has seen an increase in property tax revenues in recent years. This growth is largely attributed to continued development and an expanding tax base, as new construction and rising property values have contributed positively to the town's financial outlook. So you can see those values that have increased steadily. The outlier number that you see on there is reflective of recommended tax increase, and that's why that percentage is high. But going into some of the larger increases, 2023, the property tax revenue increase or larger jump at 12.1% would be a direct resultant from the Onslow County reappraisal. And then, generally sustaining year over year at smaller increments. For example, this year, our property tax revenues being estimated a little bit over $300,000 than what they were last year. I'll remind, we looked at the pay study numbers that exceeded just that property tax revenue. So already we're working on a deficit coming into this budget, looking at the key strategic initiatives in which council has identified as being important. Surf City property tax revenues, again, the graphical chart. It's important to recognize that while revenues have increased, the rate of growth has not always kept pace with the escalating costs of service delivery, capital improvements, and personnel needs. As inflation continues to erode purchasing power, even modest increases in revenue must be strategically managed to ensure long-term sustainability, just underscoring the comments that I had just made regarding the pay study.
Al, I'm sorry. One question real quick. I know you're trying to get through this.
No, you're fine.
One of the misconceptions, I've spent so much time with the mayor and yourself and Melissa, one of the misconceptions is development is put in town, there's 400 new homes, but the tax revenue from that pays all the bills. And the misconception is it's hardly even gets close to that. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we have to look at, and again, some established things that the town has put in place to look at service delivery, based on the amount of people that are coming into town. I'll use the police department. I think that's the most clear and easy one that we try to evaluate and have this metrics on. You can look at an average value of a home and apply the tax rate to it, and the cost of if you're going to look at a new development of 100 new houses, those houses are not going to be built overnight or occupied every night, but that's going to be incremental. I'm just using numbers. If that generated $200,000 in new ad valorem property tax, however, requires 2 new police officers, as chief, will come up here and say, I have the most expensive employee in the town, I have to buy them this gear and this vehicle. We start to look at this unfair balance of what the tax revenue is, just strictly ad valorem, and what the output is requiring in regard to service delivery. Now, there's some other elements to growth that benefit the town. So you have to look at, is this person going to be gainfully employed with the town? Maybe that's the case. Is this person most likely going to go to the grocery store and buy groceries? Absolutely. Are they going to go buy something else in one of our retail establishments, absolutely. That's going to benefit or contribute to the sales tax revenue. So there may be some things, I'm sure we could look at it per average, but relatively speaking, growth does not always cover expenses of the town. Now, certain types of growth may, and that's where economic development efforts may come into play, where that 100-acre tract that this town has identified for future job growth corridor, future commercial development, they're not producing the immediate need for the household that's going to then render additional services. Now, there might be some other strains, but generally speaking, the property tax that comes off of a non-residential investment, as well as the sales tax being generated from that establishment, sometimes can outweigh the service output being a positive for a community. So there's other economic development things that other communities may look like. Surf City, we're not trying to target large investments in manufacturing, but sometimes those are good projects to have in other communities where they may be more fit, where you may see, okay, well, a large auto manufacturer is going to come in and they're going to invest, hundreds of millions of dollars back into the community, and then you see that property tax being taken. We may have a $1,000 tax bill on that raw land right now, but once they make that investment, that $1,000 turns into $300,000 in tax, and that's an immediate site that you can see where you have one single use, not 100 homes, and you can potentially get a benefit from that. So sorry for the long-winded response there, but just want to kind of highlight a couple different scenarios, as those can change drastically. Wanted to highlight a couple of county property tax rates per $100 valuation, and I'll just reiterate, these are counties. So we looked at Pender, Onslow, Brunswick, and Carteret. Being in the sort of darker blue color, being the Pender, you can see went from 64.5 cents in 22-23 to 73.5 cents in 23-24. That was directly reflective of a bond referendum in which the voters approved for school construction. So what that does is, gives the county commissioners the immediate authorization to increase that tax to be able to pay for those investments. And then you see in other counties, what those tax rates are: 64.5 cents for Onslow County, 65.5 cents for Onslow County right now. That reduced from 70.5 cents. Again, that was most likely, again, I don't follow Onslow County as close, but the revaluation that occurred and the county commissioners readjusting that tax rate based on the valuation, where they saw that was fair, to still bring in probably additional revenue and also meet the needs of the community, but they were able to adjust that tax rate lower. And I'll reiterate, and again, not to get too far into the weeds with county tax revaluations, but just because the tax rate goes down does not mean the tax burden goes down on an individual. The value of their home or their asset for real property still may outweigh what that tax reduction or tax rate reduction would be. So it doesn't always just mean that your tax bill is going to stay the same or go down because the tax rate goes down. Somebody's house that was valued at $200,000 may be valued at $600,000 after that mass reappraisal. Additionally, we wanted to look at municipal tax rates, and again, I just feel very strongly about this. The town's tax rate going, shown here on this graph, 41 cent from 1920 to 24-25 remain consistent. I look at this as a 31 cent tax rate due to the taxes funding service delivery set at 31, and then the remaining 10 going directly to beach nourishment. You can see, the town of Beaufort at 46 cents, and then other communities that may be lower. Again, not sure their exact circumstances, but you do have Hawley Ridge in there that had a dip, assuming based on the Onslow County reassessment. And then, you have the town of Shalode. I don't know when Brunswick County did theirs. I think they're on a 4-year cycle. So very easily could have been adjusted based on revaluation process. When a revaluation occurs, it is your obligation and the town's obligation to evaluate the impact of that revaluation on the current tax rate, and you all make that decision on whether or not you're going to keep it at the same tax rate, reduce, or increase, of course, which is all within your prerogative. But wanted to give you some comparisons also, too, without getting into too much research and digging with it. I don't know what the structure of the tax rate is going to. Is there special assessments that are being administered within these jurisdictions that may not come up on their identified tax rate? I'm not sure. Communities used different tools to effectuate different revenues. So another town may have a tax rate of 31 cents, but they have a special assessment on their oceanfront property owners of an additional 10 cents to pay for beach nourishment. That's just one example that could be portrayed here. So the town of Surf City elected numerous years ago to keep things all under the general ad valorem tax, which in my opinion is a good way to do this, because it puts that burden on all residents to pay for resources like beach nourishment that benefits the entire town, not just one singular strip of homeowners on that ocean front. A healthy beach is going to provide much more benefits than just to that one single property owner. Yeah, and we kind of jumped into this a little bit, but the upcoming countywide property reval by Pender County, scheduled for implementation in the 2026 tax year, is expected to further align property values with current market conditions. This revaluation will support a more accurate and equitable distribution of the tax burden, while potentially enhancing Surf City's ability to fund essential services and community priorities. We did note that Pender has the 30th highest tax rate in the state out of 100 counties. And then this, kind of shows in comparison, Pender County being the majority of our jurisdiction in Pender County, what those comparisons look like. The yellow, as reflected on the screen, was the last reval that took effect, where that tax rate dropped, but then jumped back up with the general obligation bond that was issued for school construction. Getting into our local sales tax revenue. So in addition to increased property tax revenues, Surf City also projects a small rise in local sales tax revenue. This growth reflects continued economic activity within the town and is a positive indicator of both resident and visitor spending. As a flexible and essential funding source, local sales tax revenue supports a wide range of municipal functions, including public safety, infrastructure maintenance, and general operations. The increase helps bolster the town's ability to meet rising service demands associated with population growth and seasonal fluctuation. Again, I think, leading up to the story is the town, when COVID-19 occurred, experienced a tremendous amount of sales tax growth. I mean, this was unheard of, and a lot of coastal communities saw this growth in sales tax. You go further inland and that percentage reduced greatly or declined because people weren't going to urban areas, spending money in downtown, being in close proximity to other people. Think of concerts, think of other cultural art activities that were essentially shut down. COVID-19 happened, everybody wanted to come to the beach. And we saw that, we experienced that, and we benefited from that. You know, it's clear that we benefited from that. And sales tax revenue, again, as I note, being a very flexible revenue source, we can utilize sales tax revenue for generally anything that we have to fund within municipal government. Other revenue sources can be restricted in our use. Again, I can't go and take accommodations tax and use that to fund a general fund operation. You know, there's certain rules behind that, so we can't just shift things around to meet those needs. Now that COVID-19 is well within the rearview mirror of everybody, the sales tax revenue, you know, has cooled down a little bit. However, there's still increases in sales tax. You know, it depends on, you know, the weekend or the week, and the weather is, you know, you look around last week and boy, you would say that 4.19 projected should be at like 40.9% projected, but things do tend to even out throughout the year. And we see a much more sustainable growth in sales tax revenues. But, you know, what I was sort of alluding to is the growth in sales tax, as you'll note, at 19%, 10%, et cetera. We were able to use that in a combination of property tax revenue gains to help sustain or stretch the service demands on the town. So we were very beneficial of that. Last year, in my opinion, was the most difficult year to make that stretch, and we felt that by, you know, not funding things that, you know, we had set out and committed to say that, okay, this is important items for the town that we need to fund. We had to reel back on that, and we had to make cuts more so than we normally would like to. So again, you know, I like to get ahead of myself sometimes, but the graphical representation of that, you can see the stark or distinct drop in percentage increase. However, there's no decrease in sales tax revenue, which is very positive. But again, it's important to note that inflation and service costs continue to rise at a faster rate. As such, even with revenue growth, the town must continue to strategically allocate resources to ensure long-term financial sustainability and the successful implementation of its strategic priorities. So going into expenditures, as Surf City continues to grow, so too does the complexity of maintaining high-quality services and operational efficiencies. A key component of the town's current and future expenditure is investing in its workforce, the foundation of service delivery across every department. To support this goal, the town recently conducted a comprehensive pay study across all departments. The study was designed to evaluate compensation levels in comparison with similar jurisdictions, the compa ratio method, ensuring that Surf City remains a competitive and attractive employer in a highly dynamic labor market. Implementing and maintaining the recommendations from this pay study is critical not only for recruiting new talent, but also for retaining the experienced professionals who deliver essential services every day, from public safety and utilities to administration and public works. This ongoing investment represents a significant portion of the town's general fund expenditures and will require continued attention and financial commitment to support long-term workforce stability and service excellence. Another large expenditure that we look at, police department staffing. Several years ago, the town adopted our hiring matrix, and with that matrix, we looked at the calls for service and certificate of occupancies that are being issued through our community development department. And generated a formula to go through that. reviews for calls for service data and formulate the rule of 1/3 and ascertain if patrol shifts have time allocated for proactive services, something that the town of Surf City prides itself on. Comparison data should be reviewed with other listed agencies that shows that the department is correlated with other similar agencies. The final proposal was to add 2 officers. It's a 5% increase in calls for service experienced, 40% increase in special events, 221 certificate of occupancies issued, and I'll just sort of highlight that a certificate of occupancy was used, not just a building permit, because that's when the actual structure is occupied, and that's where a potential call for service can be generated. So it's not just based on building permits or how many units were approved every year. There's a much more realistic metrics to take a look at. The other thing I wanted to highlight was ABC enforcement. The town has become very proactive in this. Again, not speaking for the chief, but him and I worked very, very hard on this and collectively on this, and the amount of time that we have spent and that you all have spent listening to issues within the community about some of the issues that we see with alcohol-related incidents. We feel like this was another proactive approach that we needed to take to get our officers certified to do ABC enforcement. I think we're seeing a lot of the benefits of that. Special patrols added, the beach, the parks, and the multi-use path. This is a step up from what we saw in years past, where we dedicated a singular officer to beach patrol and really the beach strand. And although a lot of people did not like that, we feel like it prevents a lot of crime from occurring. So that was important, and that's something that we're going to continue to maintain. The other thing that we'd like to see this expanded upon is our parks. We continue to get additional issues that are happening, and 2 of our larger parks at Soundside and of course the Earl G. So having dedicated enforcement there and proactive enforcement, I think we're going to see some major changes here coming soon. And then the robust community policing initiatives in which the department and town prides itself by having those interactions with our community to make sure that we're meeting their needs and making sure that those police services are administered and that they know where to go to call if there's an issue outside of 911, of course. Again, just another graphical representation, calls for service, major increase last year, almost 20%. That's what warranted 2 officer requests last year. We were able to fund 1. And then this year having a 7.26% call for service increase. Again, highlighting some of the other programs in which the police department is administering. The other larger expenditure request is the fire department staffing. As we've heard from Chief Wilson, the need to maintain NFPA standards and ISO ratings and to eventually staff this ladder truck. I won't get into too many details about it. I think we've heard a lot from Chief Wilson. He's very passionate about this, and understandably he takes this very seriously, which is appreciated. But we've got to get to a point where the ladder truck has dedicated staffing, basically another company being added. We took the first step of that project last year by adding 3 new officers. We want to continue to work on that proposal to add eventually 12 new personnel so that we can have that dedicated company. That will come into play with an additional 3 staff this year. Being with 3 captains and another firefighter, and then trying to chip away at that for future years. We also need to restore the shift coverage, which is the one firefighter vacancy caused by the reclassification of a firefighter position to assistant chief of training, which will restore balanced shift coverage within the department. This is another graphical representation of the fire department calls for service. So an increase of 11% this year for their calls for service. We always talk about this overlap in calls where Station 23 and Station 25 may have competing calls. And then if we get a third call in, we have to prioritize what those events are and focus resources accordingly. So balancing the budget, the proposed budget broken out into the funds listed below. I won't go through those numbers again, but Surf City's continued growth brings both opportunity and responsibility. As the town experiences rising service demands, increasing personnel needs, and the pressure of inflation-driven costs, the process of balancing the annual budget has become more complex and more critical than ever. While property and sales tax revenues have shown positive growth, they are being rapidly outpaced by the financial demands of maintaining infrastructure, expanding essential services, and investing in the town's workforce. Key expenditures, including implementation of the pay study, public safety staffing, and capital projects, require a thoughtful and measured fiscal approach. To address these realities, the town is carefully evaluating its budget strategy to ensure long-term sustainability while maintaining a high standard of service for residents and businesses. Prioritizing funding for 6 strategic initiatives outlined by council, assessing operational efficiencies across departments, projecting the impact of the 2026 property revaluation, and preparing for potential adjustments to the tax rate if necessary to preserve core services and support critical infrastructure investments. Surf City remains committed to responsible financial stewardship, ensuring that every dollar spent is aligned with community values, future growth, and the town's strategic plan. The Fund 10 historical expenditures versus the growth rate. So you can see the large expenditure documented in 23-24 was due to some transfer of funds, but also when the expenditure occurred with the purchase of 2 fire trucks at $1.2 million. But overall, our expenditures have remained really very, very modest increases over the last years, working within our means. And also wanted to show, what that looked like in regard to the percentage of growth rate. So it's kind of deceiving that you would see, that line going down, but that does not equate to a decrease in growth rate, as you all know. Our expenditure percentages have not equaled our growth rate percentages year over year. With any budget presented, there's not a carte blanche approval of everything that comes across Melissa and I's desk. We take this very seriously, and we have to try and balance what we feel is aligned with council's priorities and what their vision is for the town, and cuts have to be made. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Again, as noted prior, departmental budget requests exceeded this year's revenue projections by more than $3.2 million. This is an overview of some of the items that were cut from the budget. I'm not going to go through this line by line, but this equates to more than $700,000 that we have to sit down and carefully analyze to make sure that it aligns with department priorities, with overall town priorities. But again, there's things that we do have to defer. We can't fund everything every single year, and I think this is reflective of what that looks like. As noted prior within my budget message, with the reintroduction of a new contract for solid waste services, We did see some costs that went up. However, those are very minimal. $1 each on trash and recycling, so the combined rate will go from 26 to 28 to be able to sustain the services that are being offered currently. Additional cart costs will go up, as well as the monthly second pickup or seasonal pickup cost. The other two fee schedule changes that are being proposed are the memorial bench going up $100. That's just to cover the increased cost of those. And then the hourly rate for off-duty officers going from $40 to $46, again, based on personnel cost. But those are generally borne by the third party who is hiring those officers for special events or other need. So in conclusion, why 12 cents? I think that's kind of the big question here. In general, to responsibly meet the demands of a growing community, fund key strategic initiatives, and ensure continued delivery of high-quality services, a 12-cent property tax increase is being proposed as part of the 25-26 budget. This adjustment is not being made lightly. It is the result of comprehensive planning, data analysis, and a clear understanding of the town's long-term operational needs. Fund implementation of the pay study, essential to attracting and retaining a professional, competitive workforce across all departments, especially in high-demand areas such as police and fire. Advanced capital improvement projects, including expansion of Fire Station 25, vehicle purchases, and others. Support pedestrian multi-use connectivity, including $250,000 for sidewalk improvement and the next phase of the multi-use path. Enhance a public communication and digital accessibility through the new website and forthcoming mobile application. And I'll rephrase that as a update to the website and forthcoming mobile application. And then ensure sustainability in the face of rising costs due to inflation, increased service delivery demands, and limited flexibility in other revenue sources are generally going to cover that why 12%. So even with the recent increases in both property and sales tax revenues, the town faces a structural funding gap between what is needed to maintain and improve services and what current revenue levels will support. The proposed 12-cent increase helps bridge that gap, allowing Surf City to preserve its strong fiscal position while making targeted investments in the future. Madam Mayor and Council, that concludes my presentation. Understanding that the board may have some questions, I will certainly do my best to answer those. Melissa, I've asked her to be here by my side in case there's some specific questions about line items that we need to go over within the proposed budget. I will note that the budget schedule has been adjusted or shifted minor. We were anticipating a public hearing on May 6th that will have to be pushed to the first meeting in June due to some advertising needs in order to meet our statutory requirements. We do not want to rush this, nor do we want to put this on a work session to throw anybody off in regards to expectations within the community. So I did want to mention that.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Melissa, and every department and employee have come together to work on our budget this year. One question I had, so as far as, let's just take an example of a $500,000 home, what does that equal in dollars for that homeowner?
Sure. Well, thank you for using an even number.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've looked at this, and 500,000 may not be the average or whatever, but generally speaking, on 12 cents, that's an additional $600 tax liability, for the property owner on $500,000 assessed value. So $600 annual liability.
While we go over questions, could we go to the slide right before that one and just have that up there? I just wanted to see that again. Thank you.
What's the total, like, anticipated, and it can be an approximate, but what's our total anticipated amount that we should be bringing in with this increase?
It would equate to about 2.5 million. And that then equates to recurring revenue based on that tax rate.
So basically, for 11 years, we have had no tax increase. We have, in some cases, robbed Peter to pay Paul. In 2021, 22, we were able to sustain because of the increase of sales tax, accommodations tax to our local area due to COVID, unfortunately. But we do have a expectation to provide quality to our everything that we do. Quality to our Parks and Rec, quality to our police department, quality to our fire department, quality to public works, fields and grounds. Everything that a citizen does pay taxes on, they expect quality to be there on top of the health, safety, and welfare of everything. So, I want to give everybody a chance to speak on this because I know it's huge. It's going to, everyone's going to be talking about this in town and having a lot of concerns. So I do want us to be consistent, and I really appreciate why you have the 12 cents there, and that's something that, we're going to need to focus on when we start answering those questions with the public. So.
Yeah, and again, I would not be here making this recommendation. As you all know, spending money pains me. A lot of times, unless it's for good projects that are necessary for the advancement of the town. I think that we run a very fiscally responsible town that starts with the policy in which you all set, and then we implement, especially through purchasing and oversight and all those other things. It's for example, I'm going to use F&G if I can, facilities and grounds. We waited probably 3 years from an application for a grant to buy 2 vehicles. We're buying 2 vehicles for $20,000. The council impresses upon myself, which I translate to staff, you need to seek other opportunities for revenue through grants, through partnerships, communicating with others that may have resources. We can't do it all on our own. And then to sort of reiterate what you had mentioned, Mayor, is that I feel like we have a service delivery expectation for this town that goes beyond the basic needs, and that's where this recommendation is born, coupled with the current economic climate within our region, within the nation. The price of things aren't going down. How many times I hear that, or I should have bought in at some point. Because we're not going to see that. So making investments when we can and when we should has to happen in order for us to not see ourselves, in a position where we're so far behind that it continues to be an ailment for us. So yes, I think that 12 cents is a huge increase in tax rate. It really is. But I think that, or I don't think, I know that some of the projects that we've been able to do and that we plan on doing are going to benefit our residents, continue to provide the high level of service delivery to them, and make, Surf City, in my opinion, the best that it possibly can be.
A comment more to it than a question. Look, I'm just reiterating what everybody else is saying, but for those, and like I said, this isn't for the board. Y'all know, y'all have heard everything I'm getting ready to say. This is for people watching or listening. I want to make sure people understand, as a board, this is not the first time we're talking about this. This is not the presentation where we're like, okay, we're going to make the decision based on this last hour. That's not the case. We've been talking about this and working on this since well before February at our retreat, and it was an in-depth conversation, and we've since then met individually with the town manager and the mayor on multiple occasions, hashing out different points, and I promise you, I know I've aggravated the dog out of Kyle and to Teresa with the term wants and needs till they're tired of hearing it. But to reiterate what you're saying, we as a community have a certain, what we consider a standard of living, a quality of living of goods and services. And anybody that's gone to the grocery store in the last 16 months, they know that goods and services have gone up, or the hardware store. Well, we as a town are not immune to that. We have to maintain the workforce. We have to maintain our parks and rec. We have to maintain our infrastructure because of, whether it was COVID or another reason, the influx in the building growth. I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm in support of what you've presented today, and anybody else that's listening. I promise you that this board has dug into this in detail and in depth, and it does not come. This is not a willy-nilly decision that we're making. And again, the mayor mentioned we've not had effectively an increase. And I can't remember how many years, but it's been several years. The last increase, it sounds like, well, we went up 10%, but hey, that was completely earmarked for one thing and was not used. And that was for your beach nourishment. That's kind of where I want to go. Like I said, it's not a question as much as a statement. You may not hear a lot of questions today, but it's because we've been drilling down on this since the retreat in February. So just know that that's where we are.
And I will note, I provide praise all the time to prior elected officials and, the foundations in which we're set to be in a position that we are in now. You would not have $32 million in your beach nourishment fund without those decisions that were being made. And today, we would not be in a position to entertain this Army Corps project, which has been the number one priority for the town for 20 years. And we are going to effectively, and I can't quantify it right here, but we will save a tremendous amount of money without having to go borrow at the federal interest rate that is subject to fluctuation on that beach project, because we're going to be able to do this, knock on plexiglass, but we're going to be able to do this as a pay-as-you-go project. So we're not going to go and have to borrow millions and millions and millions of dollars to complete this absolute necessary project. And that's sometimes, I think, can be overlooked in regard to the overall financial stability of the town, because that'll be one less burden that we're looking ahead, that you all have looked ahead to understand that the other implications of interest based on borrowed money is not going to be there. So the investment decisions that you all have made in recent years to continue to bolster that are coming to fruition. We have some more good news in regards to investments that we're going to share with you at a future date. So this, again, this is not a throw it out there to bail anything out. This is strategic in its presentation. It's strategic for the future of the town, and this town has got a ton of very large projects that we want to undertake for the benefit of everybody and the necessity to be successful in the future. So.
Anyone else have any comments?
So I know we talked about one thing, like our pay study, just with the pay study alone is an additional $500,000 essentially going into our budget. And then we're talking with a police officer, I know Chief has come and said before us, that's one of the most expensive things that we can do is hire a new police officer, because it's not just the officer themselves, it's the vehicle, it's the equipment, it's the insurance, it's everything else that comes with that. Same for fire, I would almost assume. And I think as a whole, as the community, safety is always a number one concern. And we've reached this thing where we've shifted from being kind of a retirement community to having this demographic and median age too, where we're a lot of young families. And I think you look at this as a whole and you realize that like safety is that top priority. So I think it's important for people to realize that as well, that this isn't just, it is a need, it's not a want. These are things we really need to have that we have shifted away from because we haven't been able to financially take care of those responsibilities.
John?
I'm good.
Jeremy?
Yeah, I got a couple things real quick. Well, first of all, I want to commend Mr. Cannady because I think you spoke well in the fact of saying this is not something we thought about today. I know that I've had the privilege with the mayor and Kyle and Melissa the last 3 years. We sit down and arm wrestle, and it takes days, and it's so painful, right? And you know, Teresa's, we're not raising taxes. We're not. No, this is what we go through.
Yeah, and that was the other one on the other side.
Yeah, well, that was a whole nother story. Yeah, he was it for sure. And you know, you get to this point where we knew year after year it was going to catch up with us. We knew that. We just hoped it didn't happen. And then, you know, it's a couple takeaways here. 50,000, 5,000 is our census. But I want to remind people that we have 50,000 in the summer that use our roads, use our services. And then we really have about 20,000 in the off-season because we have Hampstead comes here, like you said. We have Hawley Ridge that comes here. We have Sneed's Ferry that comes here. So we're not servicing 5,000 citizens, okay? And that doesn't include the military that live here that are not in part of that census. So we really do have a lot bigger demographics of people that live here that we service. Also, I was told last weekend, I was talking to Lieutenant Hartsfield with Captain Hauser, we had 19,000 cars they clocked. 19,000 cars in one day.
One day.
Yeah, one day. And so it's massive. And then also, you know, something, I have a business, local biz here, so I've heard this for years. Yeah, sold my place up north for $1 million. Came to Surf City, I came to Surf City, bought a place for $400,000. Put $600,000 in the bank, and I'm paying 1/3 the taxes. So I mean, really we're and better services. So we are providing better services for people than they used to, or they're used to getting. And then the last thing is, as Mr. Kennedy said, 13 years no operational tax increases in 13 years. We've been just living off of our cash flow. We've had no real increase. So I'm in favor of this 100%, and it has been a very difficult discussion for everybody here at Painful. So I just want to say that.
And let me one more comment. I apologize because I'm afraid we may be setting a tone unintendedly. We're not broke. The town is not broke.
I was just about
we're
to
not.
say
We're not in distress. It's just a matter that it's time to make some decisions about where some money's going to
Look
go.
ahead.
Goods and services have exploded since COVID. So has pay rates, and we're just readjusting and resetting ourselves to maintain our high quality of government and budget. And we're planning. We're doing what you have to do. We're planning for the future. We're not broke. We're not broke.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was just about to say. So very timely is that, you know, the needs that the town has identified and priorities that the town has identified have to have dedicated funding sources to it. So, you know, this is again a proactive planning approach for what those identified needs are, what those priorities are that you all set for the community. So, yes. The last thing we wanted to do, and something that I will never recommend, is to dip into reserve funds to fund the operational needs. Those are year-over-year expenditures that you are absolutely robbing Peter to pay Paul. And that's a very quick and disastrous path, you know, from the negative financial standpoint. And you know, I think Melissa and I would both be up here trying to raise those red flags and warn you about those things. But you all are very in tune to what that all means. And again, you were right ahead of me on that one. So.
Thank you. Trudy?
Yeah, thank you, Kyle. I know this has been a lot of work, which I appreciate because it needs to be looked at every detail. But just to kind of summarize, we were looking at a $3.2 million deficit. And then this 12 cents, as what Alicia had said, is a $2.5 million answer. And then we did some cuts. And that's the math of that.
That's in very
And very,
raw
very
sense,
high level.
absolutely, yes,
Very high level.
absolutely.
Okay, and I do appreciate the slides and things that you provided. And on top of how you just given us our, reviewed our strategic plan, it all does line up. Everything that we are trying to cover with an increase is exactly what we've talked about at the retreat when we weeded through plenty of topics and needs versus wants and everything like that. So I appreciate the correlation on all of those items. And that's not necessarily a dollar for dollar, but it is a goal, a strategic plan of ours of what we've mapped out we want the town to be like, continue to be like, and how these dollars, need to be there for those objectives. So I appreciate that actually happened in the same meeting today. Yeah, this has been painful, but thank you. And Melissa has done an excellent job.
Absolutely.
That's a phenomenal job, yes.
Great, yes.
In all departments, too.
Yes.
And that's always captured in the budget message. I did not read that verbatim, but it starts in October. It starts in November of the prior year to get to this point, so.
Well, and y'all did a great job talking us through that, and it's back to the thing, it wasn't a today conversation. You've been educating us and showing us lots of things. Melissa's had her eyes really wide in meetings and just really, and I know you guys have been super creative, and we've looked at a lot of different options, and I appreciate that, so.
I'd just like to add something I passed by because I didn't want to just repeat what everybody's saying, but like everybody's saying, it's a good thing. I'm in favor of it. It's something I think we have to do. I look at it from security and safety aspect for the police and the fire. I mean, that alone speaks volumes. The amount of people we have here, the amount of stuff that goes on here, we have to make sure we cover that, and hopefully next year we'll cover a little bit more, but baby steps. But this is a good thing since it's been 11 years or 12 years or whatever it was floating out that we haven't done anything. It's
All right.
thank you very much.
I just want to say thanks to all of council. We have put a lot of time in it, and thank you for each one of you for dedicating so much time and really digging into it, and ultimately knowing that this was like the only answer to come out of the whole situation. It's the only answer. So at this time, I'm going to ask for a consensus to move forward, and this will be put on the June agenda.
That's correct. And as a reminder, in the statutory requirements for the budget process, the budget is available for anybody's inspection. That'll be posted online, a hard copy here in Town Hall, in the town clerk's office, and up front. So, if people need to dig into it, they're certainly more than welcome to. So just wanted to do that, and we will duly advertise a public hearing for the adoption.
Do we have a consensus?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Melissa. While Kyle's coming back up, getting situated, I want to introduce Jeremy Smith. This is Jeremy right here. He's our new planning director, and I'll let John take over from here.
Jeremy, we've got Jeremy Smith, we've got Jeremy Shugarts, right? And is there any nickname or anything that you have, or surname that you're known by? Okay, well, then we could do with Big J, Jeremy Smith, and if we didn't want to get confused, we could have little J. I'm really, really happy about this.
Big J, little J.
That's
I like
exciting.
it.
I'll tell you what. I tell you what. I'm hurt.
I know I'm known as the shortest council member, and actually, right now, the oldest one here. But now, I have another person I can call out, so I don't have to worry about remembering Jeremy Smith or Jeremy Shugarts. So, little J and big J, that's fine. Is that okay with you, Jeremy?
I tell you, I've been here a long time, and you just got a big promotion. You just got it. I'll tell you what.
Okay, last,
Yeah, it's good to meet you.
thank you. Last item number 19, timber, the timber sale. Thinning.
Yeah, so thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I've shared with you the efforts in which Mr. Price and has really led on looking at Juniper Swamp and looking at some of the assets that we have out there in regard to timber. We started on this venture essentially looking at long-term maintenance of that property and having a timber management plan in which we will achieve out there to hopefully increase our production in spray irrigation. But also, too, as we've recognized recently, is having some additional protections on fire. So being proactive and actually managing that land as a timber plot as well as an infrastructure property, the byproduct of that is some benefits back to us through some timber operations. So working with the consultant, we've identified 2 actions that can be taken immediately. One is a timber thinning contract with Canal Woods, and this is in the amount of $25,000, and then a timber clearing sale with the highest bidder being Michael Goodson Logging Incorporated for $255,000. So we will continue to work with the consultant on this and identify future projects. This will be a good start for us, but I do need 2 motions essentially to allow the mayor and I to execute any documents necessary to effectuate the terms of the contract for Canal Woods, and then a very similar motion to authorize the mayor and or manager to execute any documents necessary to effectuate the terms of the sale with Michael Goodson Logging. So just by virtue of being directly adjacent to me, I will hand over the form. So if Councilwoman Solomon wants to, if the mayor's okay with her entertaining those motions.
I'm making a motion to adopt, requested that the board approve the timber contract with Canal Woods and to authorize the mayor and manager to execute any documents necessary to effectuate the term of the contract. And it's also, so that's one.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
And it's requested that the board approve the timber sale with Michael Goodson Logging and to authorize the mayor and or manager to execute any documents necessary to effectuate the terms of the sale.
Making the motion.
Making a motion to do that, sorry.
I'll
Yes.
second it.
A motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Right on.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
All right, second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Please come to the spring clean luncheon at 1 o'clock.